In February 2026, a government did something almost unheard of. It seized two of the busiest ports on Earth from the company that had run them for decades, removed the operator, handed control to two rival shipping groups overnight. The company that lost control, a Hong Kong conglomerate. The ports, major container terminals at either end of the Panama Canal. 7 companies you have never heard of control more than 40% of global container port throughput. And if you have ever waited longer than expected for a parcel, a part, or a shipment, one of them was probably the reason why. This is AxisShift. And before this video ends, you'll understand why a handful of companies almost nobody can name control the physical gateways of global trade. You have never heard of most of them, but much of what you buy has passed through terminals like theirs before reaching you. The 7 largest port operators on Earth: PSA International, China Merchants Ports, China COSCO Shipping, APM Terminals, DP World, Hutchison Ports, MSC. A port operator doesn't own the products inside the containers. It controls something more valuable. The place where ships become supply chains. The cranes, the berths, the container yards. The terminals connecting ships to trucks and rail. A ship can cross an entire ocean and still go nowhere until a terminal gives it somewhere to unload. Ships can change routes, cargo can change suppliers. But eventually, every container has to cross the same boundary, from sea to land. And that boundary is the port. Which brings us back to Panama. In March 2025, CK Hutchison, the Hong Kong conglomerate that had operated Balboa and Cristobal, major container ports at either end of the Panama Canal, agreed to sell 80% of its global port assets. Nearly $23 billion, 43 ports, 23 countries. The buyer, a consortium led by BlackRock and the terminal arm of MSC, the world's largest container shipping company. On paper, a straightforward asset sale. In practice, it became a proxy war. The United States had spent months alleging Chinese influence over the Panama Canal. When the sale was announced, Washington welcomed it. Chinese state media portrayed the sale as capitulation to American pressure. Chinese regulators opened an antitrust review. They pushed to insert COSCO, a Chinese state-owned operator, into the buying consortium. For nearly a year, the deal stalled. Then, in February 2026, Panama's Supreme Court declared Hutchison's concession unconstitutional. Within weeks, APM Terminals, owned by Maersk, took interim control of Balboa. MSC's terminal arm took Cristobal. Hutchison called it unlawful, filed for international arbitration. The dispute reached the United Nations. 2 container terminals most people had never heard of had become the center of a US-China confrontation. Every major port operator now sits inside a web of overlapping strategic interests. DP World, owned by the government of Dubai, operates terminals across 78 countries. COSCO, owned by the Chinese state, has expanded into ports across Europe, Africa, and Latin America, each acquisition raising the same question in Washington and Brussels. Is this trade infrastructure or something closer to strategic positioning? And there is a deeper shift happening beneath all of this. Shipping companies no longer just want to own the ships. They want the ships. Then the terminal, then the logistics, then the inland transport. MSC, already the largest container line on Earth, is now becoming the largest terminal operator too. The companies moving global trade are increasingly buying the gateways global trade moves through. So what does this mean for you? Your phone, your television, parts of your car. Much of what you buy passes through terminals controlled by companies you've never heard of. When a port is disrupted, ships reroute. Shipping costs rise, delivery times extend. And when governments fight over who owns those ports, the infrastructure beneath global trade becomes part of geopolitics. You feel it in your inbox as a delayed order. You rarely learn why. We have shown you the cables that carry the world's data. We have shown you the metal that will decide who wins the AI race. Ports are older than both, quieter than both, and just as essential. Every ship that crosses the ocean still has to dock somewhere. And increasingly, the companies that own the ships are buying the places where those ships have to stop. Global trade looks enormous, but its gateways are becoming remarkably concentrated. Subscribe to AxisShift, because the world is turning and you should know which way.